Rich billionaire discovered his wife was pregnant. He begged for second chance, leaving Mistress in tears. When billionaires fall from grace, it's never quiet. It's a cataclysmic crash that shakes the foundations of their empires. Meet Adrian Lockhart, a man who seemingly has it all: prestige, unimaginable wealth, and a love life entangled in shadows. But when he discovers the woman he once loved and then discarded is carrying his child, the polished facade of his life fractures. As the media swarms, secrets rise, and the mistress who believed she held his heart unravels. One question echoes: can money truly buy redemption? Prepare for a heart-stopping saga of betrayal, ambition, and second chances, where loyalty is tested at every turn. Adrian Lockhart's life was a glittering tapestry of success, woven with threads of risk, ambition, and relentless focus. His earliest accomplishments set him apart from the normal run-of-the-mill entrepreneurs. By 25, he had secured seed funding from private venture capitalists linked to the likes of Sequoia Capital and Y Combinator for his technology startup. By 30, he'd cemented himself as the founder and CEO of Lockhart Innovations, a conglomerate straddling software, real estate, and even a newly emerging fashion line. In philanthropic circles, people whispered his name alongside legends like Bill Gates, forging an image that made him untouchable, impeccable at board meetings, charismatic at high society galas, and ever-present at black-tie charity events. But behind the calm, glossy image was a different man, one whose relationships never quite caught up to his frenetic business pace. He often tossed aside emotional ties like old receipts from a completed deal. Nevertheless, years ago, Adrian had committed the ultimate leap: marriage. Elena Garcia was different from the other socialites he had briefly courted. She was, ironically, the antithesis of the high-maintenance, high-stakes circle he inhabited. A school teacher from a small coastal city in Spain, Elena captivated Adrian with her unwavering morality, softness, and unwavering sense of self. She reminded him of everything that was warm and genuine in the world, qualities money could never replicate. Their courtship was a whirlwind that ended in a lavish wedding. The ceremony was held in the Tuscan countryside at a vineyard Adrian had purchased solely for that purpose. Among the guests were top executives from Apple, a scattering of Hollywood icons, and even a rumored cameo appearance by Elon Musk, who arrived by helicopter for the reception. Elegant, expensive, and full of promises, the day seemed destined to mark the beginning of an epic love story. But as soon as the confetti settled, trouble began brewing. Adrian's incessant travels, meetings, and deals put a wedge between them. Over the next couple of years, Elena's pleas for more time, more affection, simply more of Adrian, fell on ears too busy dissecting market trends. Frustrations grew. Arguments erupted over everything, from the lack of quality time to Elena's old-fashioned desire for a family. Each disagreement would eventually fester in the quiet of their penthouse, overshadowed by the glimmer of city lights or drowned out by the hum of private jets. Elena tried to cling to her optimism, continuing to teach at a small private elementary school in Manhattan, where she had relocated to be with her husband. She'd volunteer in local libraries, sponsor reading programs, and try to ground herself with simple tasks. But nights were lonely, and even the luxurious surroundings of a newly renovated triplex on Park Avenue didn't fill the void. Adrian began to recede from her life, slipping into the arms of an illicit relationship that promised excitement without obligation. No one, least of all Elena, could have predicted how far he would fall from grace, or how one crucial piece of news would send his meticulously curated world into chaos. Adrian first met Jade Anderson at a high-profile tech conference in Singapore. Jade was an accomplished technology journalist from Silicon Valley, well known for her incisive columns in TechCrunch. She was far from the stereotypical gold digger. With a master's degree in computer science from Stanford University, a string of successful angel investments, and her own budding data analytics firm, Jade seemed equally unstoppable. She was clever, articulate, and unapologetically ambitious. During an after-party on a rooftop bar overlooking the Marina Bay Sands, sparks flew. Adrian found a sense of familiarity in Jade's relentless hunger for success and global recognition. They began an intense, clandestine affair. Jade, who had always prided herself on her independence, found it hard to resist the magnetic pull of Adrian's power and the promise of the emotional closeness he claimed was missing from his marriage. What began as a fling escalated into a full-blown relationship, fueled by stolen weekends in five-star hotels, hushed dinner reservations at exclusive Michelin-starred restaurants, and even secret getaways on Adrian's private yacht in the Mediterranean. Under the warm Spanish sun or the moonlit waves of the Italian coast, they would talk about their dreams, frustrations, and regrets. Jade relished Adrian's confessions, disenchantment with his marriage, and the unspoken guilt for leaving Elena to the shadows. She convinced herself that Adrian was inches away from finalizing a divorce. After all, what did a schoolteacher have in common with a CEO who had the world at his feet? The paparazzi had yet to sniff out the relationship, partly thanks to Adrian's ironclad legal team and an endless budget to keep things quiet. But rumors always swirl in high society, and whispers soon followed. The hush-hush details began to surface within certain social circles, the private dinners, the business trips to Dubai that included Jade. Gossip traveled from one philanthropic banquet to the next, and eventually it made its way back to Elena. She heard faint echoes of suspicion, but dismissed them as slander fueled by envy. After all, they'd always gossiped about Adrian's personal life. She chose to trust him until the day her trust unraveled, exposing a raw, helpless heartbreak. Yet, Jade remained confident. She had no intention of being the third wheel. She pressured Adrian discreetly to finalize whatever was left of his marriage, using her own connections to gauge how Elena was holding up. As the months wore on, Jade grew uneasy. Adrian seemed to stall on the subject of divorce, always citing complications, real or fabricated. Lawyers were incompetent. Negotiations got stuck, or Elena refused to sign. Jade's frustration mounted, especially when she saw how freely Adrian still spent money on Elena, lavish monthly allowances, spa weekends, and endless credit card bills. It all suggested that perhaps Elena wasn't such a temporary fixture after all. Unbeknownst to Jade, the unraveling of her grand dreams was just around the corner. The truth of Adrian's marriage, and a revelation that no mistress wishes to hear, would set off a chain of events so explosive, neither Jade nor Adrian could return to the life they had once known. Elena's nights had become a constant tussle with insomnia. After hearing the swirling rumors about Adrian's alleged affair, her calm demeanor grew tense, filled with unspoken dread. She tried to focus on her teaching job, on the bright, hopeful eyes of her first-grade students, but an uneasiness clouded even the simplest daily tasks. Her closest friend in New York, Sofia Hernandez, who had known Elena since their university days in Barcelona, could sense it too. On more than one occasion, Sofia urged her to confront Adrian, to either salvage the marriage or find closure. But Elena, guided by a mix of denial and unconditional loyalty, hesitated. One particularly restless evening, Elena decided to check her husband's study. Adrian was on a trip to Dubai, supposedly to discuss a new real estate project on the Palm Jumeirah. She stepped into the lavish room, lined with mahogany shelves and floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the glittering Manhattan skyline. She moved her fingers over the polished surface of Adrian's desk. A single drawer was slightly ajar. Inside, she found a neatly stacked set of photos. The first few depicted scenic vistas from Adriatic coasts, clearly from his yacht vacations. As she flipped through them, her hand froze. There was Jade resting her head on Adrian's shoulder, smiling as he pressed his lips against her forehead. The world came crashing down around Elena. All the rumors had not just been petty speculation. They were real. Her chest tightened, tears stinging the corners of her eyes. Anger rushed in, quickly followed by a strange numbness. Without thinking, she dropped the photographs onto the desk, leaving them there in plain sight. She marched back to her bedroom, only to collapse onto the bed in a flood of tears. Sometime around dawn, after hours of silent sobbing, she resolved to step away from the shadows. Elena was done with self-pity. She had her dignity, and she would confront Adrian upon his return. But life has a way of twisting fate in the most unexpected ways. Days later, before Adrian even set foot back in New York, Elena began feeling unusual fatigue and dizzy spells. She chalked it up to stress, heartbreak, and sleepless nights. But when the morning nausea refused to subside, she decided to see her doctor. Sitting in a bustling waiting room, Elena's mind wandered as she recalled her dreams of motherhood. Back when she and Adrian were newlyweds, they would half-jokingly imagine children, what they would look like, where they would go to school, whether they'd attend soccer camp in Spain or coding camp in Silicon Valley. She never could have guessed she'd one day be preparing for that possibility alone. In the privacy of her physician's office, Elena heard the words that would alter her path forever. "You're pregnant." She was 5 weeks along, still early, but absolutely certain. The swirl of emotions was overwhelming, from triumph to terror. She felt the anchor of new life rooting her, even as her marriage wavered precariously. With trembling hands, she thanked the doctor and stepped into the sunshine, realizing that the next step she took would define the future for herself, for Adrian, and for their unborn child. Adrian returned to New York in a celebratory mood, having secured a lucrative partnership in Dubai. He had no idea that the ground beneath him was about to shift. The plan was simple: drop off his suitcase at the penthouse, take a quick shower, and then meet Jade at an exclusive rooftop lounge for dinner. In his mind, the evening was just another mark of success, an opportunity to wine and dine in style, perhaps even float the idea of visiting one of his new properties together. As soon as he opened the door, however, he sensed a strange tension in the air. The apartment was ominously quiet, like a stage set for a confrontation. He found Elena seated in the living room, her posture rigid, her eyes red and swollen from crying. On the coffee table, the incriminating photographs of him with Jade lay in stark display. Adrian's heart jolted, but his meticulously cultivated composure forced him to maintain a placid demeanor. "Elena," he greeted softly, already planning how to spin the narrative. "Business partner, friend, a colleague needing some comfort, whatever it would take to salvage the situation or at least keep it from exploding." But the facade was futile. Elena stared him down. "I don't need an explanation for these," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "But you should know something before you decide if you're going to walk out that door again." Adrian glanced at her, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. "I'm pregnant," Elena finally managed to say, tears threatening to spill anew. That single sentence had the power of a thunderclap in the quiet room. Adrian froze, reeling from shock and an unexpected wave of emotion. In that moment, his carefully balanced double life threatened to break him. "How? When did you?" Adrian's words stumbled out, confusion tying his tongue in knots. He sank into a nearby armchair as if gravity doubled in force. For all his wealth and cunning, he was ill prepared for this. Elena recounted the doctor's visit, the morning sickness, everything. Yet she kept her tone direct. I saw your photographs with her. I don't want your excuses. But this child is ours, and I haven't decided if I'm going to keep you in our life. Adrian had always viewed himself as an untouchable figure, a king in a fortress of fortune. Yet all it took was a single moment to bring him to his knees. His typical inclination was to throw money at a problem, to overshadow it with grand gestures and hush it up. But this was different. This was fatherhood. He was shaken by the magnitude of it, and suddenly he felt that Elena was more important than any other woman in his orbit. Elena rose from her seat, leaving Adrian at a loss for words. I'm staying with Sophia for a few days, she said quietly. Don't follow me. I need time to think. And with that, she walked out, leaving Adrian alone in the echoing silence of a life he had so carelessly let slip. While Adrian stared at the empty apartment, a fury of conflicted emotions storming inside him, Jade was reveling in her own illusions at the exclusive lounge. The rooftop was perched atop the newest luxury hotel in Manhattan, offering an unparalleled view of the city. She had reserved a private cabana for two, complete with a champagne service that cost more than a working couple's monthly mortgage. It was a venue meant for celebration, and Jade believed that tonight Adrian might finally present her with tangible proof that he was moving on from Elena. Minutes ticked by, then hours. Adrian was nowhere to be found. Initially, Jade assumed a business emergency had delayed him. She sipped on the champagne, politely declining the repeated inquiries from the waitstaff about whether her companion would arrive. After the second hour, she began to worry. She texted Adrian multiple times, then tried calling. No response. Frustration seeped into her carefully composed exterior. Jade recalled how she had stood by him, not only as a lover, but as a partner in strategic thinking, a confidant in business expansions. She replayed every conversation where Adrian had promised to handle his divorce very soon, ensuring her that their future was imminent. Yet here she was, alone, paying for a celebration of a relationship that clearly existed more in her mind than in reality. Growing restless, Jade dialed the number of Adrian's driver. He answered politely, saying only that Mr. Lockhart had not yet left his residence. Jade's mind raced. Why was Adrian at home? Could it be that Elena had confronted him? Was Elena pregnant? Jade couldn't ignore the rumors swirling in certain circles, especially after she'd overheard a snippet of conversation at a philanthropic gala about how Mistress Lockhart was glowing these days. Finally, just before midnight, Jade decided to go to the penthouse. She needed answers, and she was tired of feeling like an accessory to Adrian's whims. Arriving in the building's marble lobby, the doorman recognized her, but hesitated to grant access, citing instructions from Adrian's head of security. Jade steeled herself, insisting, threatening to call Adrian on the doorman's phone if necessary. After a tense standoff, she was allowed to ride the private elevator up, heart pounding. She found Adrian sitting in the living room, the city lights flickering behind him. The photograph evidence still lay scattered around, as if a tornado had swept through. He looked up, eyes brimming with a cocktail of guilt, shock, and vulnerability she'd never seen before. Jade froze, noticing the open drawer, the scattered pictures. Her heart plummeted. What happened? She asked quietly. Elena is pregnant, Adrian said, his voice trembling with an edge of desperation. She found out about us. She's gone. Jade swallowed. In that moment, she realized the precarious edge she had been dancing on. All the illusions of a swift, neat divorce crumbled. If Elena truly was pregnant, Adrian's priorities would shift in a heartbeat. The fear of being pushed to the sidelines, left with nothing but broken promises, coiled around Jade's mind like a viper. And for the first time, she felt the stinging possibility that the real loser in this tragic love triangle might be her. Adrian spent the next several days in a haze. Routine tasks like checking emails, attending board meetings, or even eating felt surreal. Each time he tried to focus on a business deal or philanthropic engagement, Elena's voice would echo in his mind. "This child is ours, and I haven't decided if I'm going to keep you in our life." The panic set in. Adrian wasn't simply worried about public image, though that was a concern, especially for someone of his stature. He dreaded losing the chance to be a father. Beneath his polished exterior lay a genuine fear that he had burned too many bridges with his wife, that she might never trust him again. And what if she decided to cut him out of the picture entirely? Sophia's phone number flashed on his caller ID for days, but Adrian couldn't bring himself to call. He was certain Elena was there, and he had no idea what to say beyond a scattered apology. Instead, he left messages with Sophia's doorman, texted Elena repeatedly, and tried to glean any crumb of information from mutual acquaintances. Each time, the only response was a terse directive. "Elena does not wish to speak to you yet." Meanwhile, Jade tried to exert her influence. She apologized for the confrontation at the penthouse, attempted to comfort Adrian in his distress, and subtly insinuated that she, too, could be part of his future. Yet Adrian, usually so captivated by Jade's wit and beauty, could only think of Elena. It drove Jade into fits of anxiety and, inevitably, rage. She had convinced herself she was the main woman now, but the pregnancy changed everything. Adrian's mind was locked on his child, on his wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife. The lines blurred, and Jade felt herself slipping away from the center of his attention. One night, with insomnia biting at his thoughts, Adrian decided to go to Sophia's apartment building. He parked his black Bentley discreetly and waited for hours, hoping to catch a glimpse of Elena. Finally, around noon the next day, Elena emerged from the lobby with Sophia by her side. She looked tired, but still carried a serene strength that both calmed and tormented Adrian. The moment their eyes met, Elena stiffened. Sophia stood protectively, glaring at Adrian as if he were a trespasser. "Just a minute, please," Adrian begged, ignoring the wave of shame that rushed over him. His heart pounded, desperation evident in every syllable. "I need to talk to my wife." Elena's eyes darted away. She whispered something to Sophia, who nodded and gave Adrian a sharp look. "You have 5 minutes," Sophia snapped. "Then we're gone." Adrian swallowed, stepping forward. He spoke in a hushed, rushed tone. "Elena, I'm so sorry. I know I've hurt you. I never meant—" "Stop," Elena interjected, arms wrapped around herself protectively. "I'm tired of apologies. I'm tired of excuses. I need to think about what's best for me and this baby." Despairing, Adrian reached for her hand, but she pulled it away. "Let me make this right," he pleaded, voice cracking. "Please, Elena, let me prove to you I can be a better man. Let me remarry you if that's what it takes. I'll do anything." Elena searched his face, tears glistening in her eyes. Sophia stood by, arms folded. For a moment, time froze. Adrian Lockhart, billionaire mogul, was on his knees figuratively, if not literally begging for another chance. But would this be enough to heal the scars? Meanwhile, Jade was spiraling in her own turmoil. Adrian's desperate pleas to Elena stoked her deepest insecurities. She sensed that the fragile control she had over Adrian's affections was slipping. Night after night, Jade found herself alone in her upscale loft in Tribeca, unable to sleep, her mind racing with questions. If Adrian returned to Elena, was Jade to remain a secret? A regret? Would all her sacrifices amount to nothing? This uncertainty ate at her, eroding her confident exterior. She tried to busy herself with her data analytics firm, scheduling back-to-back meetings and forging strategic partnerships with major tech players in Silicon Valley. She even managed to snag an invite to a high-profile networking event where luminaries like Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg were rumored to attend. Yet, during the event, Jade couldn't quell the pang in her heart. She found herself checking her phone obsessively, waiting for messages from Adrian that never came. On a frigid Thursday evening, Jade decided to confront him at his office. The gold-embellished sign of Lockhart Innovations glimmered against the Manhattan skyline. Up on the 52nd floor, the receptionist tried to block Jade from entering Adrian's private office, but Jade's frustration boiled over. She marched in anyway, finding Adrian in the midst of a tense phone call with his legal advisors. Papers detailing estate divisions, trust funds, and potential custody scenarios littered his desk. Adrian blinked in surprise but held up a finger, signaling Jade to wait. She could practically taste the panic in the air. Within minutes, he ended the call. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice full of fatigue. "I could ask you the same," Jade snapped back. "One moment you promise me, we'll be together. The next, you're groveling at Elena's feet. I feel like an intruder in your life, and I hate it." Adrian leaned back in his leather chair, eyes weary. "Elena is pregnant. Jade, this changes everything. There's a child involved now." Jade's voice trembled. "I know, but what about us? Do I mean anything to you, or was I just convenient?" It was rare for Jade to bear her vulnerabilities so openly, but heartbreak had peeled away her layers of composure. Adrian rubbed his temples, exhaling slowly. "Of course you matter. But this baby, I have to be there for my child. I can't simply walk away from my responsibility. And I still have feelings for Elena. We built a life together once." Tears began to form in Jade's eyes. She tried to fight them back but failed. The composure she'd carefully curated in public settings crumbled in the privacy of Adrian's office. "So, what does that mean for me?" she demanded softly. "That's what I'm trying to figure out," Adrian said, sounding defeated. I'm not the man I was. Everything's so complicated now." His non-committal answer shattered Jade's last shred of hope. She stormed out, tears openly trailing down her cheeks as the office staff averted their gazes. Inside the elevator, she finally broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Every promise Adrian made, every stolen embrace under a foreign sky, every lavish dinner, it all felt like a cruel illusion dissolving before her eyes. And for the first time, Jade realized she might be left not only broken-hearted, but also with a tarnished reputation in a world that never truly forgives a mistress for existing. Elena stayed with Sophia for nearly 3 weeks, trying to sort through her tangled emotions while also dealing with the upheaval of early pregnancy. Mornings brought a wave of nausea, evenings a cascade of questions she could barely articulate. Sophia became her rock, offering gentle guidance, warm meals, and a quiet sanctuary away from the prying eyes of the media. When paparazzi finally sensed a story that the elusive billionaire's wife was missing Sophia's doorman, vigilantly turned them away, reminding them that no visitor had permission to pass without explicit approval. In those solitary moments, Elena found herself recalling her first date with Adrian. They had strolled along a quiet stretch of beach in Barcelona, watching the sunset paint the sky crimson and gold. They had talked about everything, their families, favorite foods, childhood dreams. She confided her fear of public speaking, and he'd humorously recounted his failed attempt at stand-up comedy during his college years. That evening, they had been two souls finding comfort in each other's stories, unburdened by wealth, status, or ambition. The memory still carried a warmth that reminded her why she had married him in the first place. Yet reality now loomed. Adrian had betrayed her trust repeatedly, and it wasn't just a random mistake. It was months, maybe years of lies. Her mind whirled with possibilities. Could she ever forgive him enough to co-parent peacefully? Would her child grow up in a broken home? And what if the child asked about the missing father or the scandal swirling around them? The questions were relentless. In a moment of introspection, Elena decided to talk to her parents back in Spain. Her mother, widowed young, had raised Elena with quiet resilience. Through a tear-choked phone call, Elena explained everything: the infidelity, the pregnancy, her heartbreak. At first, her mother was furious, urging Elena to come home immediately. But with measured calm, her mother also offered guidance. She reminded Elena that a mother's love and decisions shape a child's life forever. "Think about your happiness and your child's well-being," she said. "Those are your priorities." The next day, Sophia returned from work to find Elena poring over financial statements and property deeds. Adrian's lawyers had delivered them, presumably to demonstrate the security Adrian could provide. Ironically, Elena wasn't impressed by the sums or the properties. She was more concerned about the strings attached. Accepting Adrian's financial stability might mean giving him greater sway in her life, or it could be her child's best chance at comfort and opportunity. If she left Adrian and raised the child alone, would she deny them a father's presence and vast resources? Just as she was about to close the documents, her phone buzzed a text from Adrian. It read, "I'll wait for you as long as it takes. Just tell me what you want. I want our family back." Elena gazed at the screen, a mixture of anger and longing in her eyes. Despite everything, part of her still remembered the man who once walked hand in hand with her on that Barcelona beach, promising to stand by her in both the sunshine and the storm. A week later, under the advisement of Sophia and her mother, Elena agreed to a meeting. She wanted a neutral environment, so they chose a high-rise law firm in Midtown Manhattan with a sleek conference room overlooking Central Park. Adrian arrived with two of his top attorneys, including Neil Hargrove, a high-profile litigator who had handled divorces for several Fortune 500 executives. Elena came with a single lawyer recommended by Sophia's cousin, a smart, tenacious woman named Clara Villanueva. The atmosphere crackled with tension. Every word Elena spoke was measured, yet her emotions simmered just below the surface. Adrian, looking unnaturally subdued, said very little. His lawyers did most of the talking, outlining a generous proposition that included a significant trust fund for the child, real estate, and ongoing financial support. They also hinted that Adrian would like to reconcile, potentially even renew the marriage vows, to offer the child a stable, two-parent household. Elena felt her frustration spike. The overemphasis on money grated on her. She looked up at Adrian, her gaze as direct as her words. "Do you think I want your millions more than I want your honesty? You can keep your real estate. What I needed was a faithful husband." Clara touched Elena's hand gently, a reminder to remain calm. The room fell silent, and for a moment, even Adrian's attorneys looked chastened. Then Neil Hargrove spoke again, shifting gears. "Mr. Lockhart is prepared to undergo counseling and therapy to address the marital issues, as well as sign an agreement to dissolve any and all relationships that interfere with the sanctity of the marriage." In other words, Jade had to go. Adrian cleared his throat. "Elena, I'm ready to do whatever it takes. I was an idiot, but I can change for you. For our child." Tears swelled in Elena's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She turned to Clara. "I need time. Please have the legal documents sent to my personal email. I'll review them carefully." With that, she stood, effectively ending the meeting. Adrian quickly rose, as if desperate for one final plea. "Elena, wait. Can we talk alone?" With her back turned, Elena paused. "Not now, Adrian. When I'm ready." She walked out, leaving behind a silent conference room. In the elevator, her chest felt tight. She knew Adrian's attorneys were trying to buy security, but could her heart be bought? And even if she wanted to salvage the marriage for their child's sake, could she live with the memory of his betrayal? Anguish warred with the maternal instinct blossoming inside her. Back in the conference room, Adrian sank into a chair. Neil placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We'll finalize a more flexible proposal, something that emphasizes family unity, not just money," Neil said quietly. Adrian nodded, a sense of resigned determination blanketing his turmoil. He vowed that if it took every resource he had and every ounce of sincerity he could muster, he would win back the mother of his child. Word of Adrian's predicament inevitably leaked to the press. Rumors of an illegitimate child turned out to be false, replaced by the bombshell. His wife, whom everyone assumed he'd drifted from, was pregnant. Tabloid headlines splashed across newsstands. "Billionaire begs wife for return," and the mistress left in the cold. Cameras camped outside Adrian's penthouse, while reporters peppered Elena's school with questions until the principal had to shield her from the media. Jade found herself the center of a different kind of attention. Anonymous social media accounts lambasted her as a gold digger, a homewrecker, or worse. Some of her business connections quietly distanced themselves, not wanting negative press to rub off on them. She felt a mounting pressure that chipped away at her sanity. One evening, while Jade was out for a tense dinner meeting meant to salvage a deal with a group of venture capitalists, someone recognized her. A couple seated nearby sneered as they whispered, audible enough for Jade to catch phrases like "that's the billionaire's mistress" and "shameless." Shame and anger flared within her. She hastily ended the dinner, stepping onto the busy Manhattan sidewalk. The city's neon lights blurred through her tears. Unable to contain her emotions, Jade impulsively decided to confront Elena. She had learned from a tabloid article that Elena was still staying with Sophia. Jade found the address and made her way there, fueled by a volatile mix of jealousy, regret, and desperation. At the building, Jade demanded to speak with Elena. The doorman refused, and a confrontation ensued. Sophia, alerted by the commotion, came down. She recognized Jade instantly, her jaw tightening in outrage. "Leave Elena alone," Sophia warned, her tone dangerously calm. "She doesn't need your stress right now." Jade's voice shook as she responded. "She needs to know I didn't force Adrian. I... Her words trailed off as her bravado collapsed. She looked almost helpless. Sophia crossed her arms, her glare unwavering. "Elena knows enough. She's the one with a child on the way, so show some respect." A wave of shame washed over Jade. Yes, she had pursued a married man, but she had believed his lies about a failing marriage. She never intended to destroy another woman's life. Yet here she was, face to face with the friend who wanted her gone, the friend who would protect Elena at any cost. Jade stepped back, tears brimming. "Tell Elena, I'm sorry. I didn't know she was pregnant at first. I never meant to cause this." Before Sophia could respond, Jade turned and fled, hailing the first passing taxi she could find. She pressed her forehead against the cold window glass, Manhattan streets streaking by in a haze of taillights. A profound emptiness gripped her. She realized that if Adrian and Elena reconciled, she would forever be the villain in a story told to a child who might one day ask, "Why did my father leave my mother?" And that question, more than any other, seared Jade with guilt and regret she could no longer outrun. Elena stared at her reflection in Sophia's bathroom mirror, taking in the faint changes pregnancy was already making to her body. A swirl of emotions pressed on her chest, fear of the uncertain future, anger at Adrian's betrayal, and an inexplicable longing for stability. Should she give Adrian a second chance? Could he truly change? These questions haunted her daily. She heard a soft knock on the door. It was Sophia, holding an envelope. "This came for you," she said, handing it over. The envelope bore an embossed crest of Lockhart Innovations, and inside was a letter from Adrian. No legal jargon, no mention of finances, just a simple handwritten letter. In it, Adrian apologized for the affair and reiterated his readiness to become a father. He recounted the earliest days of their romance, reminding Elena of the night they danced in the back garden of a small Barcelona cafe. How they were drenched in a sudden rainstorm and ended up laughing, soaked to the bone. He wrote that he missed that simplicity, that version of them. The letter ended with a plea, "I will wait for you at the same vineyard in Tuscany where we said our vows. Come, if you can find it in your heart." Tears glistened in Elena's eyes. Part of her wanted to tear the letter to shreds, but another part remembered the vow she once made to love in sickness and health. In good times and bad, the vow he broke, could it be mended? Sophia, noticing Elena's turmoil, offered gentle advice. "It's your call. If you go to Tuscany, that doesn't mean you're bound to reconcile. Maybe you just need closure." Elena nodded, feeling both drawn and repelled by Adrian's request. Ultimately, she decided to meet him, not to fall into his arms, but to see if there was any sliver of truth left to salvage. Meanwhile, Adrian was already in Tuscany. His private jet had whisked him away from New York's chaos. He arrived at the vineyard where they married, under the same sun-kissed skies that once bore witness to their vows. The staff had prepared a small suite for him in the main villa, and from there he paced the floors, hardly sleeping. Hours turned into a day into two. He wondered if Elena would come at all. On the third day, a car pulled up on the gravel path. Adrian rushed to the entrance, heart pounding. When he saw Elena step out, hair gently blowing in the Italian breeze, his breath caught in his throat. She was radiant, even with all the pain etched into her expression. Without preamble, Elena spoke softly. "I came because I want to see if there's any truth left between us. But understand, I'm not here to be fooled again." Adrian nodded, a flicker of hope lighting up his eyes. "I understand." They walked together through the rows of grapevines, the same path they had strolled as newlyweds. The air carried the scent of ripe fruit and sun-baked earth. Though their hands hung close, they didn't touch, uncertain whether to bridge the gap between them or let it remain. Only time would tell if the memories and love they once shared could weather the storm of betrayal and be reborn in the golden haze of a Tuscan sun. They wandered deeper into the vineyard, where time seemed suspended in the languid Italian summer. As they strolled, the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the surrounding countryside in shades of gold and soft orange. It was both beautiful and achingly familiar, so reminiscent of the day they had wed. Surrounded by friends, family, and the promise of a future that now felt fractured. At last, they reached the small outdoor chapel where their vows had been exchanged. The wooden benches had weathered slightly, and creeping vines adorned the edges of the pergola. Fireflies began to flicker around them, heralding dusk. Elena paused at the threshold, memories cascading, the petals strewn across the aisle, the soft strains of classical guitar, and Adrian's trembling smile as she walked toward him in her lace gown. "This is where we started," she whispered, more to herself than to Adrian. He turned to face her, silent for a moment. His gaze scanned the worn stones, and the arch where a priest once pronounced them husband and wife. Finally, he found his voice. "And this is where we might begin again, or finally end, if that's what you decide." They lingered in that sacred space, the hush of twilight around them. Finally, Elena cleared her throat. "Why did you bring me here, Adrian? If you just wanted to show me you're serious, you could have taken me anywhere." Adrian's lips pressed into a thin line. "Because this place is where I felt the most honest, the most real. I want you to know that I remember how I felt that day. I remember the promises I made. And I want you to see that I haven't forgotten." Elena shook her head, tears prickling her eyes. "But you did forget when you slept with Jade, when you lied to me time and again. Why should I believe a single word now? He exhaled shakily. I can't force you to believe me, but I need you to know I'm not the same person who walked away from our marriage. Learning you were pregnant woke something in me, a sense of responsibility. Yes, but also love for you, for our future child. It made me confront who I've become. And I don't like that man. I want to change, Elena. She swallowed, recalling her mother's words. A mother's decisions shape a child's life forever. You hurt me, she said, voice trembling. What if you do it again? What if I trust you and you find another mistress down the line? I can't live with that uncertainty. Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn photo. It was the snapshot of him and Elena on the beach in Barcelona, arms around each other, faces alight with hope. I carry this with me every day now, he admitted. It reminds me of who I want to be, the man who earned your love, not the one who threw it away. They fell silent, each lost in a swirl of memories and regrets. Above them, the sky shifted from orange to a deep purple, and the first stars began to appear. A gentle breeze caressed them, rustling the grapevines. It was as if the vineyard itself witnessed their heartache, offering solace in the soft glow of twilight. Suddenly, Elena felt a flutter in her belly, her child's movement, faint but undeniable. She pressed a hand to her abdomen, eyes widening. Adrian noticed the gesture. "Are you okay?" he asked anxiously. She nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. "The baby," she whispered, awestruck. I felt a movement. A poignant silence enveloped them both. Adrian took a tentative step forward, placing his hand over Elena's. Together, they stood, connecting in that intimate moment with the new life they had created. Neither spoke, but the significance was clear. For all the wreckage between them, they shared an unbreakable bond in this child. At length, Elena drew in a shaky breath. "I'm not naive, Adrian. I know that even if I give you another chance, it doesn't erase the past. But, for the sake of this child, I'm willing to try counseling. I want real change, not just empty promises. And if I see even a hint of deception," she paused, her gaze turning steely, "I will walk away and I won't look back." Relief flooded Adrian's features. He nodded, swallowing hard. "I understand, and I'm ready. We can do couples counseling, or you can set whatever conditions you need. I just want to earn your trust, step by step." They left the chapel, walking back toward the villa under the moon's gentle glow. Fireflies danced around them, and the faint hum of cicadas filled the air. It felt as though the Italian night was breathing with possibility and caution all at once. At dinner, a simple meal of freshly made pasta and local wine, Elena, sipped only water, lent a semblance of normalcy. They spoke in low tones, sorting out practical matters, the pregnancy timeline, doctor's appointments, possible living arrangements. Adrian offered to step away from certain business commitments to focus on therapy and fatherhood. He mentioned potentially moving some board responsibilities to trusted executives, at least temporarily, so he could show Elena he was committed. She regarded him with a mixture of guarded hope and wary disbelief. Their conversation inevitably turned to Jade. Adrian explained that he'd ended the relationship, clarifying that while Jade might harbor resentment, he intended to provide no further reason for the affair to continue or resurrect. Elena nodded, uneasy but choosing not to dwell on that topic for the moment. They still had a mountain of issues to scale before trust could be rebuilt. Late that night, Elena settled into a separate bedroom in the villa. She needed time alone. Adrian had wanted them to share a room, but she gently refused. "We're not there yet," she had said. Disappointment shadowed his face, but he conceded, knowing that pushing too hard could break the fragile truce. Elena lay in bed, the windows open to let in the night air. The sounds of crickets lulled her toward sleep, but her mind was restless, replaying the day's events. Had she made the right decision by agreeing to give Adrian another chance? Or was she setting herself up for another heartbreak? Her phone lit up with a message from Sophia. "Are you okay? Thinking of you. Whatever you decide, we're here for you." A soft smile crossed Elena's lips. She replied briefly, thanking Sophia for her support. Then she closed her eyes, feeling the baby's faint presence like a whisper of hope within her. For the moment, she let herself imagine a future where Adrian did become a better man, and where their child could grow up knowing a father's love. In the adjacent room, Adrian gazed at the same Tuscan moon through another window. Sleepless, he contemplated his next steps. He had never been one to shy away from a challenge, especially in business. But this mending a broken marriage was the hardest and most important endeavor of his life. He pictured the child he hadn't even met, vowing silently to give them a father they could look up to. He would apologize every day if that's what it took, not just with words but with actions. The first step would be therapy, followed by unconditional transparency with Elena about his finances, his travel, and his communications. Across the Atlantic, in her Tribeca loft, Jade sat at her computer, drafting a resignation letter for her data firm's board. She had decided to step back from public roles for a while. Perhaps she'd travel or stay out of the limelight until the scandal died down. She knew the entire fiasco had battered her reputation, but she also had the resources to start anew if she could just let go of the bitterness. A single tear slipped down her cheek as she typed. She wasn't sure if it was regret or heartbreak, but the pain remained raw. Far away from each other, these three lives, intertwined by love, betrayal, and unborn life, faced a dawn of uncertain promise. For Elena and Adrian, Tuscany's rising sun might herald a pathway to forgiveness. For Jade, the same sunrise across the ocean would mark the beginning of a painful healing process, far removed from the illusions she once cherished. In the end, the future hinged on the delicate balance between hope and heartbreak and the willingness of a billionaire, his pregnant wife, and a shattered mistress to confront their own failings in pursuit of redemption or, at the very least, closure. The tangled threads of betrayal, ambition, and redemption form the tapestry of this tumultuous saga. Adrian, once a seemingly untouchable billionaire, stands humbled by the very commitments he had once cast aside. Elena, pregnant and carrying the weight of heartbreak, chooses a guarded hope, determined to give their child the best chance for a whole family while maintaining her own dignity. And Jade, who soared too close to the flames of fortune and passion, finds herself forging a new path from the ashes of scandal. Will Adrian become the devoted husband and father he vows to be? Can Elena truly forgive his transgressions and find happiness in renewing their bond? And what destiny awaits Jade as she navigates the wreckage left behind? Thank you for joining us in this riveting journey. If you enjoyed the drama, please like, share, and subscribe for more captivating stories ahead.